Morning, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. I was addressing our guest order directly and saying, I hope I could have his consent to be him for a few minutes, just to force him to answer some very vulgar, tough, leading, incriminating yes or no questions. Is that okay?
Is that what I do?
Is that okay?
I force people to answer yes or no?
I didn't say that.
You don't want to be me, Chris. You should stay the way you are. It's a rough body to inhabit.
I was wondering whether to emphasize what we had in common or what we had otherwise. In any case, we have in common that we've both had confrontations with Charlton Heston. During the Gulf War, I was on CNN with him, and I asked him to name the countries that bordered Iraq, and he couldn't do it at all. He said he started with Bahrain, which is an island, and he went on to the Soviet Union, which has no common border with any Arab country. Anyway, I want to come back to that. So that's what we have in common. On the other hand, as everyone knows, the difference between us is that you're a man of the people, and I'm a snob and an elitist, which is, I presume, part of why we agreed to do this. They wanted us to do this today. So I'll start just with a few. Everyone saw, and everyone hugely enjoyed your movie. I just want to ask you a couple of things about it. On the day of Columbine, you say, it was another normal day, this and that was happening, and the president had just bombed another country, the name which he couldn't pronounce, right? You said that?
Whose name, that Clinton couldn't pronounce?
Well,
whose name we couldn't pronounce.
Whose name we couldn't? I thought you said he couldn't pronounce.
No. Clinton's a smart guy.
I was going to say, because I think most people could pronounce Kosovo. And even Nixon could have pronounced it. And perhaps even Mr. Bush could do it. In fact, did succeed in doing it.
Except I don't say it the way you
say. Except that you don't say it.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I say Kosovo. He said Kosovo. I don't know which is it.
We all know, everyone stopped saying Kosovo at any rate. Which was progress of a kind. In the course of discussing or featuring Kosovo, you have a clip from a television station covering the devastation of bombing, and the voiceover of this is says that these buildings, this hospital or this office and so on, was targeted. That the aim of the bombing was to hit this hospital, and the accent on this voiceover was unclear to me. But was it Serbian television?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Shouldn't you have put that that's what it was? Because on the face of it, it seems to me you were repeating their claim.
No, I just assumed that most people, even though we disagree on how to pronounce the name, knows that Kosovo doesn't have their own network. I guess, I don't know. It looked like Serb TV to me. All the Serb TV I see.
Yeah, it looked like it to me too, but I wasn't sure because I didn't want it to be thought, I'm sure you wouldn't want it to be thought that you would simply pass on unedited the claims of Mr. Milosevic. In other words, that the real war crimes in the Balkans have been committed by the West. That isn't your view, is it?
Oh, no, not at all.
So
I was just...
If you had it to do over again, would you?
No.
Would you try and want to relieve that impression?
No.
You like it the way it is?
Yeah.
An echo chamber from Milosevic.
No. It just is what it was. That was Serb TV covering. It's possible that not impossible, but it actually happened that Milosevic committed war crimes. It's also possible that it actually happened that we bombed elementary schools and hospitals.
It's a certainty that such buildings were hit, but the claim made is that was deliberate, intentional, part of a campaign of terror.
That's what's said there in the TV news. That's not my claim. If you want my own personal position, or that it doesn't matter to me whether it was intentional or unintentional. Bombs that I helped to pay for killed children and innocent people. And if we're and if we collectively decide that we need to use military force to stop war crimes or other crimes against humanity, that we better do our damnedest to make sure that innocent people don't die. And I just don't accept the theory of collateral damage in the way that it's pronounced these days.
Well, there are lots of horrible ways of saying that, but since your film is all about, indeed, the very important question of who kills people. Is it people or is it weapons? And it seems to me that a lot of people could walk away from the film with the impression that you were a fairly orthodox supporter of gun control. But I got the impression that you're not. So I'd love to hear how you reason the gun control question. When you say to Charlton Heston,
Yeah.
you're a member of the NRA, you're
Right.
not doing that for effect, are you?
No. I won the NRA Marksman Award when I was a teenager. I went hunting with the neighborhood kids when I was a kid. I started the film with the attitude that the solution to our problem is that we needed more gun control laws. And somewhere in the process of making the movie, probably when we went to Canada, I became very uncomfortable with that position because the Office of Canadian Statistics in Ottawa says that there's 7 million guns that are owned by private citizens in Canada. There's about 10 million households in Canada. It just really kind of pissed me off that the Canadians could have that many guns laying around and not kill each other. I mean, I think last year there were 165 gun murders. Half of those were committed with guns from the U.S. And so it made me question the sort of the traditional liberal, viewpoint of if we just had more gun control. And I didn't put this in the film, but I was also exploring the Swiss concept of, the law in Switzerland is there's supposed to be a gun in every home because they don't have a standing army. So in order they need to form a militia. Can you hear me okay? Is it? Okay. No. Okay, sorry, I'll just move this up. Is that better? All right. So there's supposedly a gun in every home in Switzerland. Last year they had 75 gun murders. So even the Swiss, as despicable as they are, don't shoot each other. So
Well, the Swiss are a class rather than a nation.
okay. So then it became the feeling inside of me became very and uncomfortably close to essentially the NRA position, which is guns don't kill people, people kill people. But the way that I would alter that a bit is that guns don't kill people, Americans kill people, because we seem to be the one country that cannot have guns in the house and not use them on each other. And
well, I've often noticed how I've noticed in other work of yours how Canada seems to bring out the best in you. I don't know how this is, but
well, I grew up on the.
brilliant.
Well, I'll tell you, I grew up on the border in Michigan, and as a kid, as a teenager, you'd flip over to Channel 9 in Windsor to watch the CBC News, and you learned the truth about Vietnam. You'd switch to the American channel, especially in the early years, and you would not be watching the truth. And it was amazing just to make that switch from Channel 7 to Channel 9, Channel 7 to Detroit, Channel 9 in Windsor, and see an entirely different viewpoint. And so I've from a very early age, from the time when my buddies and I in high school would make our dry runs across the Blue Water Bridge in Port Huron for if we got a high lottery number in the draft, how we were going to essentially get out of here and where would we go live in Canada. So I do admit to a fondness.
And Canada did take thousands of American draft resistors. Well,
tens of thousands.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, I thought, here's what I really want to ask you. At that point, when you say, you tick off things it can't be because of guns. It can't be because of unemployment. It can't be because of this. It can't be because of that. I thought that was an absolutely fabulous bit of the film was a really. But then in a lot of other places in the film, you leave it open, and I'm wondering if the purpose of the film is really just to let the audience decide.
Well, a part of it is because a lot of it is that I don't have the answer.
Because by then you've implicitly answered or given an answer to two of your opening scenes. In other words, it can't be because of the bombing of Kosovo, or Kosovo, or Kosovo.
Right.
It can't be that.
Right.
And it can't be because of Lockheed Martin's plants either.
That's right. There's not a direct A to B correlation between the fact that the number one employer in Littleton is the largest weapons maker in the country, and the fact that these two kids did this killing. None of us really know the answer to
because
that.
If it was a military-industrial complex, we wouldn't have enough cemeteries to bury.
That's correct.
The people who were being shot. If it was TV violence.
That's correct.
And the same, if, by the way, if it was Kmart.
That's correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're shooting slightly. Sometimes you're missing it, but you're aiming occasionally for your own foot.
That's correct. Yeah.
I just want to be sure it was intentional.
No, it is because look, I control the scissors in the editing, so I can choose to make a film that makes it look like I have it all together and got this all figured out, and I will now tell you, the masses, what we need to do. Or I can be honest and say, I started this film with one set of ideas. Those ideas were challenged, and some of them I thought were then completely wrong, and headed down a different road, and thought I had it figured out then, and then was challenged again. Because ultimately, think about, well, you bring up Kmart. If I'm saying it's not the guns and the bullets, then why did we bother to go and get the bullets banned at Kmart? And I guess if I came to any kind of conclusion in the film, it's that because we all have this shared national problem mentally, that until we correct that, it's probably best to put the guns and the bullets away. And then when we start behaving correctly, we can have our guns back. And like other countries, the guns can be there, and we won't commit these acts of violence against ourselves. The stuff with Lockheed and the military part of the film is just to point out that that's just one piece of this overall acceptance of using violence as a means to an end, and never really questioning it on any level, whether it's a very personal level where you go to reach for the gun in the house because you're in an argument with your boyfriend or girlfriend, or a decision to go and invade other countries or assassinate leaders that are democratically elected of other countries or whatever.
Or whatever, right. I just one more of these things, and then I'll shift. But it can't be mothers thrown off welfare either, can it?
What's that?
It can't be mothers thrown off welfare either, can it? Because that happens.
It's not just that either,
no.
But that is an act of state-sponsored violence. That's an act of state-sponsored terrorism to beat up on the poor over and over and over again. And when you do that, occasionally, and sadly in the poor communities of this country, more than just occasionally, you're going to have these acts of violence, you're going to have these tragedies, and I'm sick and tired of us ignoring it and ignoring the racial underpinnings that fuel these what I call these state acts of violence.
Well, I agree with you about the welfare, I have to say. I agree with you about the miserable attitude that was exposed by Clinton in picking on the underclass and saying, well, at least actually it's borrowed from the importance of being earnest, I think, where Lady Bracknell says, really one doesn't know what to say about the morals of the poor. I mean, if the poor won't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? With this whole argument, there's a problem in that statistics are not kept on things that don't happen. So we don't know how many times weapons are used to stop crimes being committed or used to defend people who would otherwise be injured. But you don't touch on that at all. Have you never heard of anybody in the United States using a weapon, a privately owned weapon, to, as has happened several times, prevent someone spraying school?
Yes.
You don't give that any airtime at all.
Right, because I could provide the statistics that the NRA offers in terms of how many times a gun is used that's prevented a crime and saved someone's life, and the statistics that the Brady Group and the gun control people use to show how you know, that number compared to having the gun in the house and how many times that increases the chance of an unnecessary tragedy occurring. I didn't want to make that film. I did not want to. It wasn't just as Heston didn't understand that I was not there to debate the gun control issue with him, but to talk to him on a different level, and so that's just not my film.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Was we've both had some fun at Mr. Heston's expense, and I think both of us probably had quite a number of jokes about Ronald Reagan's fitness to be president. Physical, mental, as well as moral and political fitness to be president. I mean, but you wouldn't tease Reagan now for being amnesiac, would you?
Being amnesiac from back then or not?
It wouldn't seem. I mean, now you wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
Now make a joke about Ronald Reagan
Being amnesiac back in 1982?
No.
Oh, no, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't now.
I would not do that. No.
But everyone knows since you shot that moment in Beverly Hills, everyone knows for a fact what is painfully obvious from watching it, right? Which is the guy's desperately sick.
I didn't feel that way.
You didn't. Am I the only person watching that who was extremely embarrassed and wincing throughout? Don't tell me I was.
What?
I didn't claim to be super sensitive. I thought it was a moment of.
Are you talking about the way he was walking, or
no, the way he was speaking, and
the way he was speaking?
Everything. Yeah, he was quite clearly a very sick guy.
No,
you didn't think so?
Not at all. No,
okay.
I thought he was very lucid.
Then I am the bleeding heart in this, after all.
Well, I'll give you my opinion, but you're making reference to what, his recent announcement?
Yes, I am.
Which was what?
That he has Alzheimer's disease.
He doesn't have Alzheimer's. See, that's the beauty of the manipulation of the media.
That he has some very severe cognitive loss condition at any rate. Yes, I don't care if it's called Alzheimer's. It's commonly called.
No, that's not what he said 2 weeks ago. That's not what he said. Did anybody see his?
Yes, I did.
Did you see the tape, the videotape?
Yeah.
Yeah. He said the doctors told him that he has Alzheimer-like symptoms, and that they said it wasn't Alzheimer's, and that he's fine. He's going to continue as president of the NRA. He's going to campaign this fall for Republican candidates to make sure that Bush has control of both the House and the Senate for the next 2 years, and he's in pre-production on his next film. So, you know, he had just had hip replacement surgery before I did the interview with him. So he's walking not as steadily as he had been before. But frankly, I'll give you I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but I'll give you my opinion.
And you don't even play one on TV.
No, the opinion of myself and the crew that were in the room felt that his answers and the way that he maybe either at times wasn't connecting to what I was asking him, or because he just kept repeating, well, the Second Amendment gives me that right, and the Second Amendment gives that right, and he keeps going on, that I felt more like, and you know this, you should know this enough by now, that when you're talking to some actors, if they don't have a script, it's very, very difficult for them to function verbally. And I don't mean that as a knock to any actors in the room. I did a thing on my TV show once, and asked Tim Robbins had called me up and said, I want to do something on TV Nation with you. I go, great. And the time came to do something, and I told him where to show up, and he said, well, where are you going to send over the script? I said, there's no script. This is a nonfiction TV show. He said, well, you got to have a script. And I said, no. So even like really smart, good guys like Tim Robbins, I mean, these are actors. And I think when Reagan is on the stage holding up the gun from my cold, dead hands, you know, he's in his moment. And when he's there with me, thinking he's going to debate gun control, when I'm not there really to talk about that, he's confused because there are no lines to give. So he goes back to the lines that he knows. And our cameraman said to me on the way out, he said, do you think that he's just a paid spokesman for the NRA? That it's not really coming from some real personal, you know, political place, that he's a paid spokesman. So when he's a paid spokesman, he functions well in that role. But he wasn't in that role on that day. I don't know. I don't know why he didn't call the NRA, or maybe he did. He had a whole night and an afternoon to call them and say I had been there, and I was coming back the next morning. And we never expected to go through those gates after we were told to come back the next morning. So I don't know.
Okay.
But I think that's I like that about you, that you felt bad for him. No, I mean that seriously. I think that's a good place. I wish more of us would start with that assumption that this, just forget about Heston politically, just as a human being. And I hope he doesn't have or develop Alzheimer's, and I hope he's healthy and well. And I hope all the Republicans that he's working for right now, while we're sitting here, will be defeated in November. So.
I think the time has come for me to be, I never know whether it's ventriloquist or ventriloquist dummy, the role that one performs, but there have been some very good questions passed up here. I've thrown away the boring and the mad ones. This is from Karen Leroy, who, I was going to ask this myself, but she puts it better. I thought there was one excellent moment in the Heston exchange where he just free associates and says, well, maybe it's because of mixed ethnicity. That's she asks what I think I know the answer to, because I thought that by then you'd become aware of your own embarrassment, but she asks, why didn't you press Heston harder on that comment?
Well, I've asked myself that a lot. And there was even one point in the edit room where I thought, well, I'm not going to put that in. I don't look too good there. I should have really gone in, for the... Then I thought, well, but that's what happened, And maybe it's just because I'm a white guy. That the first response is, you all know when you go to the Thanksgiving dinner and there's the uncle. I'm talking to the white people here, which would be probably most, who makes the racist remark, right? And what really do most of us do? Sit there silently, cringe inside, right? Don't want to start a fight at the Thanksgiving dinner, and just hope it passes, right? You want to believe it's not 2002. You didn't really hear that, and the first thing when he said that, and I couldn't believe he said it. I just couldn't believe he said it, and he couldn't believe it because you can see him immediately starting to pull back.
Yes.
Well, it's not really that. We had enough problems with civil rights, and I just.
Yes, it was like civil rights was bad enough, and now this. Now this shit.
And I thought. And I have to admit, but again, I think if I were black, I don't think I'd feel this way. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just guessing, but I looked later. He was like having his Al Campanis moment, and it was like I'm not going. Probably that thing in my head at the point is I'm not going to take advantage of this horrible thing he just said on camera. He said it. It'll be there, and people will make up their own minds and feel whatever way they want to feel about what he said. But I'm not going to, the sort of the journalist or filmmaker or whatever, oh, he just said it. It's just like he said it, and people can judge for themselves, what he meant by it. But I think that's how it felt to me,
Okay, I've got a quite different question from Philip Getz, who wants to know how do you secure the rights to show at moments like the one with Dick Clark? How do you get rights to be a gorilla?
Which rights? The actual show him in the film?
Yes.
Well, he's a public figure. We have a First Amendment, and I have a right to approach him. What had happened there was we had pulled up to his production office in Burbank, and I had told the crew just to wait in the van. I was going to go in and see if he'd talk to me on camera. It's very rare that, and I think it might be the only time in the film where we're doing one of those old 60 Minutes kind of, run and ambush, the guy.
Yeah.
anyways, as I was walking toward the building, he walked out with his entourage to the van. And so the crew saw this, and then they came out with their camera. And we figured, well, this is the only time we're going to get him. And so I just thought I'd try and ask him right there. And I always felt pretty decent about Dick Clark. He's one of the first people to. I mean, he went through a lot with the network censors to let black kids and white kids dance together on television. And I have no bad feelings toward him whatsoever. And in fact, I thought he probably doesn't even know this is going on. And if I had a chance to tell him about it, maybe he would join with me and do something to correct the situation in Michigan. So we don't have his right. We don't have a signed thing from him. We try to get permission from most people. It just reduces the number of lawsuits that I have to go through. Yes. Which, if you've ever sat through a deposition, you never want to go through one of those again. So I try to, and I've had less and less lawsuits since Roger and Me. I had like 20 lawsuits on Roger and Me, and in the last couple of things we did, we've had no lawsuits. So.
I realize I'd quite like to see your version of Bleak House, but this is from Jake, who wants to know, do you believe war is ever justified?
Wow. Well, when I had to go down and register for the draft for the lottery, I registered as a conscientious objector. So I guess that answers the question.
So that's interesting. I guess.
I'm not an absolutist person, and I'm continually, as I said about my ideas about this film, I'm continually challenging myself and finding myself wrong on many occasions, and believing that there's an exception to just about anything that could be said, including that statement I just made. So.
Well, I'm glad because, as if you weren't in enough trouble, there are lots of questions. I'll just synthesize them. We want to know whether you think you have an answer to the question, what is the cause of violence in the Middle East? And also, just to pour it on, whether you have a solution as well.
There's something wrong when you ask the guys like me for answers. The questions like that. I mean, it just really shows how much we've devolved in this country. I was thinking the other day.
Is this a great country or what?
Well, no, but think of the founding fathers. Like one of them, discovered electricity. Like George Washington discovered some new way to farm that was revolutionary. I mean, these were geniuses, scientists, really big thinkers and
intelligent white men.
And now, yeah, as good as it got for white guys at that time. That's where it was. But look now we've got this guy in the Oval Office. It's just. It's entertainment for ourselves, but we know the risk of this level of entertainment is very high, and so. Did I answer the question about the Middle East?
Well, yeah.
The answer to the question about the Middle East.
You were getting near. I could feel you getting nearer the Middle East.
Is that after the Germans exterminated 12 million people, over 6 million of whom were Jews. The Germans should have been removed from Germany to the desert to be surrounded by hostile enemies. And the Jews should have been given Bavaria, which is a beautiful part of the world, if you've ever seen it. It's lush and natural resources and just got a lot going for it. Views like this.
A great destination.
The views in Israel, I've been there a couple times. It's amazing what they've done with irrigation, but it just seemed like such a, if I were, king of the world in 1946, 47, I would have maybe structured things a bit differently and punished the real culprits. It's so sad that those who were persecuted and nearly annihilated on that level then found themselves in this situation. It's just, and with all that we've been going through in this country since September 11th, haven't paid that much attention to what's going on with the Israelis and the Palestinians. And I think everybody knows the solution to that problem. I think the Israelis and the Palestinians know the eventual solution to that problem. The answer is clear. This documentary was on PBS the other night. The Israeli journalist said, the only thing we don't know yet is the body count. That's all that's not over. How many more people are going to die? Because we know what the eventual solution is. That there's going to be two countries. It's going like he said in this documentary, it's going to be like a divorce. It's not going to be a very friendly divorce. There's going to be a border, and they're going to leave each other alone, but they're going to be able to determine their own well-being in their own state. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but does that answer the question? Or
for me, it does, yes. But I think it's an excellent answer. You mentioned the September events of last year, and I've noticed in the film that probably the American overseas intervention that you objected to the least, it seemed, was probably the most recent one in Afghanistan. Was I right in thinking that you don't regard that in the same light as the overthrow of the government of Chile, for example?
No, it's not. It's not on the same level as that. But I do object to what we've done and the way we've done it in Afghanistan. Bush said that we were going to go over there, hunt down Osama bin Laden like a dog, and kill him. That was the mission. Mission unaccomplished. All right? That's not what we did. And whether he's alive or dead, I don't know. But it seems as if he and his group were the ones who did this, then they should be tracked down, captured, and brought to justice.
Do you mind if I break in and say,
yeah.
Ask you, what is the if doing in that sentence?
What's the who?
What's the if doing in that last sentence of yours?
Well, all people are innocent until proven guilty in this country.
So you have no. That's very.
Even the worst piece of scum.
I feel I have to press you on that.
Okay.
You regard it as an open question, the responsibility of Osama bin Laden.
So anyone is convicted of any crime, no matter how horrific the crime, they are innocent until proven guilty, and as Americans,
no, that's not what I asked you.
That
isn't. No, sorry.
Position.
That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you. By the way, if that was true, neither of us would be able to operate in the way that we do as journalists, which is often to make the presumption of guilt, which we're free to make because we're not jurors and we're not judges.
Right. But
so I think you're carrying open-minded.
You mean on my personal opinion?
I think open-mindedness would be pushed hard by anyone who said, I'm not sure who is behind the bombings of the World Trade Center.
No, but I said it in the film last night. It's in type right up on the World Trade Center.
Right, but you said if now, so I was just holding you to it.
I said, in what context did I say it in?
You said if it's true that that's what Osama bin Laden did. Just now, that's why I asked you what the if was doing. Not to be pedantic.
Oh, I see. It's just,
on the question.
You know what? It's just an instinctual thing as a citizen of this democracy to put that word in there. But if you want my personal opinion...
Shall I buy that? Yes, okay. It's okay, I'm just talking to myself.
No, I mean...
Bad habit. Shall I buy that?
Even George W. Bush is innocent now of the way that he made a profit from insider trading when he was on the board of directors of Harkin Oil. But if you ask my personal opinion of what I think went on there, I think he made off.
Well, since I've got you and it's you I'm talking to, yeah, I'll settle for that.
All right. But now we just wasted 3 minutes on the word if.
No, as you know, these things...
but it's just an instinctual thing. It's just like the word please or thank you. You know, it's just a. You understand? It didn't come from a political place.
Will
it came from.
Do I buy
being, huh?
So I'm still babbling.
It's just the Eagle Scout in me. I'm just.
So Bin Laden's claims of responsibility strike you as the ravings of a clown, say.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Osama bin Laden, I would, listen, I don't know. If I were president, I would have, look, you got to take this back. This'll piss you off.
Not again.
Well, no, I loved watching you because you were so wound on Clinton and his sex thing, And
not the sex thing.
And the lying about the sex.
No, the bombing about the sex. I think you showed the aspirin factory yourself.
Oh, okay. Well,
I mean, it's the only time we know for sure that an American president has overruled the CIA and the Joint Chiefs to bomb something. Because something has to be bombed that day, and that's because Mr. Lewinsky is going back to the grand jury.
I agree with you.
That's the worst moment yet.
That's right. Okay. All right.
And he wasn't a stupid guy.
Right. He was not stupid.
So that's not the problem there either.
Now I forgot what I was going to say about Clinton.
That's okay. I can fill in for you there.
No, just at one point there were 200 FBI agents devoted to the whole, Lewinsky and all the spokes that came off of that, on that matter. And I've often thought since September 11th, what if those 200 FBI agents in the late 90s had been doing their real job of protecting the American people from acts of murder, potential acts?
Nice.
Where would we have been? And maybe it wouldn't have prevented anything, But maybe returning a few calls from the local agents about weirdness going on at flight training schools,
Whereas there was a woman in Wisconsin the other day, did you see? A grandmother who had taken a bicycling holiday in Cuba without asking for permission. And they got her. They really nailed her. They knew every movement she'd made. Well, I've already asked the question, is this a great country or what? So I won't waste any more time on it. It wasn't the lying about the sex, by the way, since you say that. It was the lying about the women as well as the bombing about the sex. He defamed and morally blackmailed and slandered the women, all of whom were telling the truth. There is that.
Right. I just think if we hadn't been so distracted as a country on something that, to me, was not a primary issue that we should have been focusing on, maybe we wouldn't find ourselves in the situation we were in, that we're in now. And now that we're in the situation, I think that we're never going to get to the truth of September 11th, because when you've got 15 of the 19 hijackers being from Saudi Arabia, 15 of the 19 hijackers are from Cuba, what country do you think America would bomb? We wouldn't bomb Uruguay, all right? We'd bomb Cuba, all right? 15 of the 19 are from Saudi Arabia, we bomb Afghanistan. Well, they were harboring Al-Qaeda, true, okay? Well, since when does the government ever go after the landlord on the people's behalf? I mean, it just has never, the thing has stunk from the beginning to me in terms of the bin Laden money that's been in the Bush family since 1979, the Saudi connections to the Bushes, the help to get the bin Ladens out of the country in the week after September 11th, all that stuff that went on, just very weird, strange stuff, and it's a can of worms we probably don't want to open, because if this was not just a separate terrorist group doing this, but perhaps elements within the Saudi government itself behind this act, we can't bomb our oil supply, right? And 25% right now, I think, comes from Saudi Arabia. So we can't go there. So let's keep distracted, and let's keep Bin Laden alive if we can, because we need him. And we don't need what's really behind him. We don't want to go there. So.
I don't feel the need for him particularly strongly myself, but if suppose it to be true, I mean, as I think you're nearly right in saying that these people were grown on the sponge of the national security apparatus, the Pakistani secret police, the Saudi ruling class, the CIA, and so forth, who gave them their head start. Wouldn't that make you all the more want to see them crushed? I mean, if they're so bad that they used to be supported by the CIA, surely you must hate them.
Which ones?
The Al-Qaeda. If they're so bad that, as you say in your film, they used to be on our payroll, then there can't really be any objection to shooting them up, can there?
Well, I think there's other ways to stop them than just shooting them up. I don't go there first. Self-defense, using violence as a means of self-defense should be the absolute last resort, and never the first means to achieve our ends. I don't believe that.
Well,
and I'll tell you, look, I just...
It was the last thing.
Look,
they let them get this close.
The Taliban...
They let them blow up 4 embassies and a destroyer.
That's right.
And they let them nearly take over Pakistan.
Yeah, and at the same time that happened, Chris, at the same time that was going on, the Taliban, you go to the BBC website and look this up, type in the keywords Taliban in Texas, 2 of my favorite keywords joined together. And
you're operating on the presumption of innocence here.
And, in my head. But then there's the other part of me that, is
that crucial other part.
Well, but that's just the human part, It's just, I believe Bush is guilty of X, Y, and Z, but he does deserve a fair trial, and I shouldn't be on the jury. You know? But the Taliban...
Well, you're not one of his peers.
The Taliban... Thank God. The Taliban leadership went to Houston in the late 90s to have a number of meetings with oil company executives there to build a pipeline for Unocal across Afghanistan. Who was going to help build the pipeline? Halliburton. Who did the feasibility study for the pipeline? Enron. This is when Bush was governor of Texas. These meetings were taking place. And I'd like to know what happened to that deal. And why did the deal go south? And what's the connection to all this? As I said to you, in the airport there in Denver, Bin Laden and the hijacker. Bin Laden, this wasn't a peasant rising up from the third world to attack the great Satan that has oppressed the world. This was a multimillionaire who participated and organized and helped, this murder, this mass murder. And the people who were the hijackers were people who had gone to university, who came from the middle class or upper middle class, engineering degrees, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's more to this than we've been told. I think we're being lied to on a daily basis about this. I think we're being distracted. And to get back to the point of the film, the way the news media works, this summer it's the abducted child. There are less children abducted this year than last year. And there were less last year than the year before. It's been declining every year. But you wouldn't know it if you turn on the TV set, because they constantly want you to be in this constant state of nervous shit fucking fear. And when you can keep a population down like that, where they stay behind their closed doors, they lock the doors, and they sit in front of that tube night after night after night, that is the perfect way to get them to vote for right-wing or fascist candidates, because their natural human instinct is to want to survive, which there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with fear. Fear is a good thing. We need fear. We need fear. We needed that from the very beginning when the animals were bigger than us and were eating us. The fight or flight mechanism that was within us. And fear saved us in many ways and allowed us to continue as a species. And we like to go to scary movies. We like to get that old thing that's in us from thousands of years ago juiced up and reactivated, because it's not activated on a normal level on a daily basis. It's abnormally activated through this lying and this manipulation to keep us afraid of all the wrong things. And then you have people going out and buying 250 million guns, which is how many guns we've got in our homes, and over 90% of those are in the white communities.
So we have everything to fear, including fear itself.
Well, he was right about that.
He was. I can't find the actual card or the lady who asked it now, but there's someone who wants to know, as I guess I do myself, what did happen to the rabbit lady and what did she say and do after the snake had had its lunch? There's a loose end there. I thought we might as well tie up.
It's 13 years ago since I had Roger Me here. This is the obvious reference I think most people get. And I am always asked about the bunny lady, about that scene in the film, or either people were so shocked at that little bunny rabbit being killed, or what's happened to the bunny lady. About a minute and a half to 2 minutes later in the film, in Roger Me, there's a black guy who's shot on camera by the Flint police. Not once in 13 years have I been asked what happened to the black guy that was shot in the middle of the street. Or, oh my God, can you believe that they shot the black guy? I had to turn away. I couldn't stand watching it. I've never heard that, Chris. But the little bunny rabbit, I still get mail on this. And it's like, and I thought about this, and I thought, we've become used to this image. We've accepted it all. We're not horrified by it. Oh, it's a black guy, he's getting shot. Yeah, okay, pass the salt. It's just there constantly, and the image of it is there, and it's been with us since we were kids, and so now we're not horrified by it anymore, and it's just another black guy getting shot. But
do you remember the dog and the napalm? Does anyone here remember this?
The dog and the what?
The dog and the napalm.
No.
During the very hot years of the anti-war movement, there was a group somewhere, somewhere in the United States, I forget where it was now. They announced that on the following Monday in the town square they were going to cover a dog with petroleum and set fire to it. And the idea was that people would care more about that than they'd care about the use of napalm on civilians.
That's right.
And it was one of those blowback things in propaganda.
Right.
Everybody did care a lot more about the dog.
Right. Rhonda.
So they did prove their own point.
Yeah.
And
Rhonda is the bunny lady. That's her name. And Rhonda Britton. And last I talked to her, she was working at Walmart. That's the answer. Yeah. And the black guy lived. And but sadly, he thought he was Superman, or he called himself Captain Dada, which I thought had kind of a nice artistic.
Captain Dada.
He had to go to the hospital for his mental.
Didn't know they had ranks in Dada. I don't think we can go much further with that. Now, a lot of people also want to know what you think about the impending hostilities in Mesopotamia.
You're so biblical.
I'm synthesizing the question. Synthesizing several questions. The future unpleasantness.
It's a distraction for the November election. We've been through this before. There's nothing new about this, and I hope he doesn't do it. If he does, I hope he doesn't get away with it, and it won't work. For those of you who believe that it should work, it won't work, and that's what I think about it.
I'll ask you this then, because it's implied in some of the questions. You don't find Saddam Hussein scary at all? You think you're just
How do you make that conclusion from the fact that I don't believe we should carpet bomb the country?
I don't. I just wondered what you thought about.
Everyone agrees
Mr. Hussein.
He's not a good guy. All those in favor?
Okay.
Only 5 hands went up, by the way.
That's high. This is from Claire Boulanger. I hope I'm Frenchifying it correctly. She says, your films may win awards, but do you feel they accomplish social change?
Well, they don't win awards. Not in this country. They don't. Do I hope? I hope it's a small contribution on my part to helping people think about some things that are going on, to question what's going on, and to generate a discussion and a debate. I don't know if any one movie can affect social change. I get a lot of great letters from kids and high school students who watch Roger and me in school, and I'm very happy for those teachers who show it and get these kids thinking about the economic system that we have, and its evil nature early on. So I'm happy for that. But it's very hard, Chris, to get my stuff out there. I mean, I just went through this thing with my book. The publisher had printed the first 50,000 copies, and they were going to shred the book. They printed it on September 10th. So after September 11th, they weren't going to distribute it to the stores. They were going to shred all 50,000 copies just to kill the book. And I had to really fight to get this thing released. And now, with this film, I know even this won't be an easy road to get this movie out there. Fortunately, we've got a great distributor in United Artists here in this country, and Bingham Ray, who's the head of United Artists, has been behind a lot of great independent films over the years. So I've got good people on my side to try and get this thing out there. But well, I hope so. I know Bingham doesn't want me to say this, but we got the word in Cannes that the largest theater chain in the United States said that they will not show this film in any of their theaters. So we may have the First Amendment, but we have this corporate control of getting our free speech out there. And so it's I don't really expect the easiest path for this if that's the first indication of what we're up against. It's got great distribution in France, though.
Yeah, but so does Jerry Lewis. I mean,
he was a genius at one time.
Oh yeah, I was forgetting.
Yeah, pre-telethon, this guy.
It doesn't worry you at all. Do you even let yourself suspect that the people in Cannes might have thought, here's a film that shows everything we already thought about how crazy and vulgar and nasty Americans are?
You mean with the Europeans?
Yeah.
Think that? Yeah.
But it plays to a certain gallery and.
Oh yeah. No, but they're also right though. I mean, they're right about a lot of that. About a lot of what we do around the world is pretty damn despicable, and thank God they're standing up to Bush on this Iraq thing, and hopefully they won't back down, and And the French deserve to laugh too, and if it's at us, right? They're good people.
Tamara Strauss wants to know, what did you cut from the final version?
Oh wow, a lot. One of the reasons I bought the lifetime membership for the NRA was because I was going to run against Heston for the presidency of the NRA. And so I started down that road at one point, and I just didn't feel like running the NRA. I had this wild idea that they have 4 million members, right? They represent a minority position in the country. The majority of Americans don't believe in what they believe in. So I figured, could I find at least 5 million Americans out of the 280 million that would agree with me, pay the least amount for membership, and then get me elected so I could disband the organization. And it was then that the shot came from the rooftop. It was amazing. Chris was untouched.
Do you know I have...
I was there to tell you, right? He was laughing about it. He just started laughing about it. And then like 3 days later,
I have a friend who's investigated this very minutely, and who's concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald was trying to kill Governor Connolly of Texas, with whom he had a terrific beef because he thought Connolly was behind the yanking of his honorable discharge from the Marines. So he waited till the governor was driving through town.
I like that one.
And he hit him too.
And he hit him.
But there was all this collateral damage. That's been boring everybody ever since. I'll ask you Mr. J. Norman from Chicago's question, because I think I may know the answer to it, but he says, do you feel that the argument more guns, less crime has any merit?
No.
None at all?
No.
Do you think the Second Amendment, I'll ask you this, should be in the Bill of Rights at all?
Yes. Yes, the way that it's written. That states have a right to form a militia for the common defense. Yes, I believe that is correct. And I don't think we should ever go in, even if we don't like that one that much, if some of you don't, I think it's a bad idea ever to go into the Bill of Rights and say, let's start tinkering with it, because there's too many people that I think don't understand. We would lose a lot of our rights if we went down that road. So let's fight the NRA and these people on a different battleground than getting rid of the Second Amendment.
Because I have some libertarian friends, NRA types, who say that there's a problem, which is that it's to do with your fear point. That people who imagine themselves liberals and in favor of gun control, they'll vote for gun control. But even in liberal voting areas like New York or California, because they don't believe in using weapons themselves or having weapons for their own defense, they'll vote for extraordinary powers for the police and for the courts and for the state. Mandatory sentencing, 3 strikes and you're out, or warrantless searches in public housing, all this kind of thing. All the while sure that they're being liberals. And so that the argument for a citizen-type police is part of the argument of the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm. Right, except the citizens have to decide who's going to be that police. And the NRA position is that it's every man for himself. And I don't want to live in that kind of country. We're all in the same boat here. Part of our problem in terms of the state-sponsored violence and why we don't have national health care and why we have this welfare to work program and these things is because we have the American attitude is me, mine, protect, look out for myself, get what I can get. I remember when Roger Me came out, a lot of liberals were uncomfortable and didn't like the film because I was bringing up something very uncomfortable to them, which was that during the Reagan years, a lot of liberals made out like bandits in the stock market, and I was there to show them here's the result of how you got to have your wealth or your trust fund or whatever off the backs and the suffering of the people in places like Flint, Michigan. And sadly, in the 90s, then the working class was convinced that the way to survive was to get into the stock market. And those with the money and the power, knowing what they were doing, built these people, took their money, and now, of course, now they've lost, their retirement and because they thought they were going to get a fair shake in the rich man's game. Wall Street is not a democracy. You don't have an equal say in this, and you don't control it, you don't run it, and you don't have the insider information. And I've seen so many friends and family back home in Michigan lose so much money in the last couple of years because they thought, after losing everything in the 80s, the little bit they were able to cobble together in the 90s from new work, this is how they were going to be able to survive and do well. And it's just now the tragedy repeats itself, and as you see in the film, Flint is even worse shape than it was when I made Roger and Me. That one particular school district where 87% of the kids live below the official poverty line. 87%. That is an act of state-sponsored terrorism against its own people. And that must be opposed, and people must stand up against this. It's immoral to ignore it. We're complicit if we do. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound so angry about it, but I'm angry about it.
You're excused, and they can even be asked questions about their sex life if they want to get on with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Linda from nearby you in Dearborn wants to ask you a personal question, but it's okay. She wants to know, how did you maintain your values while growing up in an atmosphere of, this is in quotes, enforced ignorance? I don't know if it's a quote from you, but
no,
anyway,
of course
I'm honouring her quotes.
That's the exact opposite. I didn't grow up in an atmosphere of ignorance. I grew up in the most radical, intelligent city in America. I have to live in New York City now. It's like I have to, now I'm living in this backward, in place of enforced ignorance. Seriously. I mean, I come from a city where the modern day union movement got its start with a sit-down strike in 36-37 in Flint, and that created the middle class and allowed working class people, for the first time in the history of whenever, to be able to own their own homes, to be able to send their kids to college, to be able to do all these things that working class people were never able to do before. That started in Flint, Michigan. That's where I'm from. I come from the city that had the first black mayor in the United States, before Carl Stokes in 1966, when the city was 70% white. That's where I come from. I don't come from a place of, I'm surprised anybody from Dearborn would say that. I was raised by Irish Catholic parents who taught us that we would be judged by how we treat the least among us, and that the rich man will have a harder time getting into heaven than a camel will going through the eye of the needle. That's what we were taught. And that is not enforced ignorance. That is something that I live with to this day, and I'm very proud of being from there, and from the family I'm from, and from the neighbors and the people that I grew up with, and I miss it terribly, because now, coming from we discussed this the other day, I come from the first state in the country that got rid of the death penalty in 1850, where, now I live in a state with a death penalty. I live in a city with a Republican mayor. I don't know when the last time a Republican was ever elected in Flint, Michigan. There are no Republicans. Seriously, I left to move to New York, and I've never seen so many Republicans. It's a Republican governor, a Republican mayor, a death penalty, corporate crooks running the place. In Michigan, you get 10 cents on your bottle return. The highways are clean. Look on your, where it says Michigan 10%. You know how it always says that. It's like it's an environmental state. It's a state where also, we for the last 100 years have built the machines that will bring about the end of the planet.
Good jobs and good wages.
Great wages, free dental, there's no copay on the medical care. Our parents get free lawyers. You get a free lawyer if you're a UAW member. Free lawyer. No, you pay no. You want to go get a lawyer for something? Free lawyer. Free glasses. Free, But of course it's not free because they busted their ass. And they fought those battles with the union. And they made it so that us kids had a good life. And semi-straight teeth.
One more thing, because
I'm sorry,
no, it's great. I feel moist for Michigan myself. But, and in fact,
if anyone has it on tape, send it to me. I got to put that on the website.
If anything, you understate its. This will have to be our last point, I think. But if anything, you understate its beauties, because capital punishment is actually outlawed in the state constitution.
That's correct.
Which is interesting, because if you compare Michigan to the nearest comparable, which would be Illinois, there's no question that there's fewer murders, I should say, to be more grammatical, in Michigan than in Illinois. And I once tried the same thought experiment as you've been going through, about why it is that the United States, alone among comparable countries, continues the fetish of human sacrifice, of the death penalty. Really seems to need it and practices it a lot. Whereas no comparable society does do this. They've all abolished it. And I thought, well, what are the reasons? It can't be the violent past, because there's a lot of violent past in Europe, and it's much more recent.
Right.
It can't be the memory of the frontier, because that's also present in a lot of countries that have abolished it. It can't be the Civil War, because of Ireland and Spain and Greece all have had civil wars in this century and all have abolished it. It can't be this, it can't be that. It's certainly not deterrence, because the states that don't have it have fewer murders than the ones that do. It's obviously got something to do with racism, which would also have in common with it. But there must be something else. And I worked out what it was, which is that the United States is the most Christian of the societies. I don't know if that's... don't know if how that resonates with the eye of the needle.
I told. We were talking about this in the airport, and I told Bingham that you had said that, and he said, "Is he going to say that on the stage?" And Bingham goes, "Mike, don't repeat it." He says.
You don't have to say anything.
I never thought of that angle. I mean, I'm always amazed at Christianity's ability to not follow its own beliefs. And
well, you can't have Christianity without capital punishment, can you?
Well,
I'm only asking.
Christianity as opposed to Catholicism.
Yeah, the Pope has said that capital punishment is a sin, and that it's murder, it's state-sponsored murder, and that's the way I was raised to believe. That's an act of murder. It's not an act of self-defense. An act of self-defense is putting somebody behind bars who may harm other people. The Pope also said, and I'm not a huge fan of this Pope, by the way, but he also said that capitalism is a sin, that it's an economic system that is set up to benefit the few at the expense of the many. And so those of us of, I guess, our ilk in the way we were raised, that's the kind of so-called Christian. We never use the word Christian. If you were raised in a Catholic, right? We don't use that word, do we? because the Christians to us, as Catholics, in the neighborhood, where I remember my mom and my grandparents telling us how the Ku Klux Klan in the 20s would burn crosses on the Catholic lawns, and so they we never really thought of the Christians as people that feel that safe around.
That kill you as soon as look at you.
But
Well, I like the idea of people going to confessional and saying how much capitalism they've committed since their last confession. There might be a movie in it, but look, I'm getting this.
I would love to see that. Can I close with something here?
Yeah, please. I was about to say, I've got nowhere else to go, and I'd be happy, but I'm told we have to wind.
Okay. Aside from all the politics, I just wanted to say something about just filmmaking for a second. We touched on this, briefly with the bit about sometimes not knowing where you're going, and I like that kind of filmmaking. I don't like going to movies that are so clear where you can see what's going to happen in the next scene, and I like being challenged and surprised, and I think as a director, I'd like you to go on that same journey with me, because I think it'll be more interesting and more entertaining as a film. And I don't think making just a polemical film that just has, my little sermon or rant in it is very interesting entertainment. And so if I wanted to do that, if I wanted to give a political speech, I'd run for political office, or if I wanted to make a sermon, I'd go back to the seminary. So I'm making a movie, and so I'm making it primarily so you can come there and enjoy it and be entertained and eat popcorn. And if you leave there thinking a little bit about what's going on in the world, all the better. And if a few of you, just a few of you, it doesn't take a lot, actually do something, it'll be great. And we'll live in a better country as a result of it. But I was thinking, when I didn't go to Littleton, Colorado with the preconceived notion that, I'm going to draw this parallel between the military-industrial complex of Lockheed Martin and Columbine. I go there and I just ask an innocent question of somebody, who's the main employer here? Lockheed Martin. This is where they built the MX missiles, when they were building MX missiles. And it just, when those moments happen, you're just kind of struck by the, not that that's why those kids did it. I think, personal opinion, those kids did it because the way people have always done it throughout history. People go insane. People go crazy, and then bad things happen. But your kid has a 3 times greater chance of being hit by lightning than by being shot at school. School shootings are not really the crisis that the television and satellite trucks make it out to be. And so I think that for those of you who are interested in film or who are interested in making your own films, that it's best not to start with your feet too much in cement, and allow yourself to explore and allow all your preconceived notions to be challenged. Let me tell you this. I'll end with this. This is how we got Heston. How the Heston thing ended up in the film. I tried for 2 years to get an interview with him. Went through the NRA. Went through his publicist. Went through his agent. Went through his manager. They all said no. We showed up at places where he was speaking. Couldn't get near him. So we had pretty much bailed on the idea that Heston's not going to be in this film. Fine. It's fine. We're out in LA. We're shooting some other stuff for the film there. We've packed up. We've checked out of the hotel. We're driving down Sunset to the 405, and we pass through Beverly Hills where those signs say the star maps. And some kid, one of the PAs in the van, says, "Let's get a star map and see if we can find where Heston lived." And I said, "Oh man, we got to see where the plane's leaving in an hour." "No, let's get a star." And then everybody, "Let's get a star map. Let's get a star map." And I'm like, I'm the old guy. I'm gonna check in early. We're gonna get my window seat.
You've got a lot of questions to answer.
So just to shut them up, I pull the van over. There's one up the road here. We'll get in. We pull over. I go out. I'm telling you, these things are worthless. They're bullshit, man. It's not where these people live. I go out, I get the star map, I bring it back in the van, I open up the star map, I say, "Okay, Clue number one. Here's the home of Andre Agassi and Brooke Shields. There is no Andre Agassi and Brooke Shields. They're divorced. This is bullshit. No, here's Heston right here. Here's Heston. Let's go there. Oh, jeez. All right. We go up the hill, to the address on the star map. And you can tell, let's just look at the scene. The camera, we don't wipe off the windshield. The camera guy doesn't even get out of the van, because I so don't want to do this. I want to get to the airport, so there's the windshield's dirty. It's not in focus, I just go up and ring the buzzer, so they'll all think, yeah, Mike still got it, And the thing goes, ding, and all of a sudden, out of this little box comes the voice of Moses. Yes. I'm like, I shit my pants. I was like, Mr. Heston, yes. If you see the movie again, or if you're seeing it for the first time, you'll listen to my voice. I'm shaking. I'm not prepared for this. I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's just the weird serendipity of moments like that. If you will allow it to happen, it's in the mistakes and the flaws that sometimes the truth, is revealed and allows itself to happen. So that's my, little filmmaking lesson for the day.
Well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well said. Well done.